Again, good afternoon. We can start now with section number 2, biodiversity and regenerative agriculture. A very important and interesting new topic. Impact and relevance for farming, challenges and opportunity for agriculture mechanization and technology. So this subject was suggested, and then also I thank him for doing that. Has been organized by Benno.
Benno is fine.
Sorry?
Benno is fine.
Ben is fine. Ben is fine. That's good. So many thanks. So I leave the floor to him. And please, thank you again.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. So welcome everyone to this session. And bear with me, it's the first time that I have the honor to chair a session. So I may not be as fluent as Peter was, has more experience. So help me out if something goes wrong. But I think we have an interesting topic in front of us. The first challenges are being about to be solved. That's to get the latest presentation on for the session. Biodiversity is a topic that was close to my heart, not because I'm an agronomist or a bioscientist. I'm an engineer by nature. My name is Benno Pichelmeier. You don't need my last name because it's hard to pronounce. Benno is just fine for everyone here. But if I look at the future of agriculture and the mechanization and the technology requirements for us to solve upcoming challenges, then I would say it plays at least the same level of importance and relevance going forward than is climate change or similar issues that we see coming. Why? I think biodiversity as such is our toolbox, that is nature's toolbox to deal with changes in the environment, in the climate, in nature. And if we lose tools out of our toolbox, we also reduce our opportunity to adapt to challenges. And it seems to be a quite significant development that is, in my view, underestimated, but at the same time, it's a huge opportunity and also a mandate for our industry, speaking here also for OEM, for a machine manufacturer, for us to find technical solutions to make systems that work more towards biodiverse solutions, regenerative agriculture, viable for farmers, so the uptake can work, so that we can get into a triple win situation of prosperity for the societies and farmers, the ecological sustainability of solutions for our environment and the planet, and the food production, food, feed, fuel, fiber production that we also cannot just stop, but rather need to increase further. And this combination of these three elements is an opportunity for us to find technologies and solutions that give answers, provide answers. And I would almost say it's a privilege and honor to be in that industry, to be able to attack such relevant problems. While it is for sure nice to create a race car that can go 300 miles an hour, I think it's more relevant to find solutions to food development and prosperity of societies. We have 3 presenters, and I have to tell you, it was not so easy to find them, so I'm greatly thankful for everyone that helped me also to find speakers and experts, and especially for the ones that are now willing to speak with us. It's 3 different aspects. Perspectives to that. We have Gottlieb Barsch, who will give the first presentation, like a general introduction to regenerative agriculture, biodiversity. We have Gianluca, Gottlieb, sorry, I will introduce you then as a first speaker and your background a bit. Then we have Gianluca Feligini from CNH. That's the perspective of a large OEM and their first steps towards sustainability and biodiversity in the product space. And then we have Peter Fröhlich, who is a farmer and founder of a young company that provides digital tools to provide biodiverse solution for regenerative agriculture. So these are the 3 aspects, and without further ado, we'd go to the first presentation. Gottlieb Barsch has a PhD in ag science from the Georg August Universität Göttingen in Germany. He's a full professor at the Institute of Mediterranean Ag and Environmental Science at the University of Évora in Portugal. And he is the president of the European Conservation Agriculture Foundation. Gottlieb, I'm super proud to have you here and that you could follow the call to the Club of Bologna and speak to us and give us a general introduction. I couldn't think of anyone that can give us a better starting point than you. Thank you for joining.
To dim the light, to see better the slides.
So mit den Pfeilen geht es voran, aber man kann wahrscheinlich noch. Ah ja.
Control F5. Yeah. Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for this introduction, Benno. It's the European Conservation Agriculture Federation, not the foundation, but anyhow. I thank you very much for this invitation. I think it's a privilege to talk to this audience here. And I congratulate the organizers and especially Benno that they put this topic on the agenda, which I think is a extremely important topic because it covers and it relates agriculture to ecosystem services, and biodiversity is actually also an ecosystem service. So my speech is moving towards the preservation and improvement of biodiversity in agriculture ecosystems, and I hope I can shed some light on this issue. Well, very briefly about the authors. We, the three of us, are working also for the European Conservation Agriculture Federation, and we are authors and co-authors of a report we published last year about the same topic that this speech is about. It's Emilio Gonzalez, he's also a professor at the University of Cordoba, and Julio Roman, who is working for ICAF. Well, very briefly about the European Conservation Agriculture Federation. We are a federation of 19 national associations around Europe, as you can see. We are a non-profit association that was founded in '99, so we have this year our 25th anniversary. And we are based in Brussels, but this is only, to show that we are a European federation, but our operational headquarters are in Cordoba in Spain. And I myself work and live in South Portugal for long. What causes biodiversity actually in Europe? Well, it's a pity that animation was gone now in this presentation, but anyhow. You see here, this is a publication of the European Commission. They attribute 25% of agriculture is reported to put enormous pressure on habitats and species, and they draw especially attention to the practices of abandonment of grassland and intensification, whatever this would mean, to endanger pollinator species and farmland birds, and also semi-natural habitats which are not used for agriculture. And on the right down you also can see that they attribute pollution caused by agriculture also as a strong driver for biodiversity loss. Well, and therefore they feel a strong need to restore agricultural habitats in order to reverse the situation of biodiversity loss. Because, well, they say that 33% of world soils are degraded, and intensive agriculture is again one of the main drivers. And biodiversity loss in agriculture ecosystem services is directly related to the degradation and loss of the functions of agricultural soils. And we all must recognize that the future of agriculture is actually dependent on how we can change this biodiversity loss and how we can address this, this problem. And it's also estimated that 81% of the EU's agricultural habitats are being endangered or in poor condition, and they call upon agriculture intensification, and we will have a look at it, landscape fragmentation and soil depletion as the main drivers for this poor condition of biodiversity. Well, I'm sorry, this is not the last version. If I might, sorry, let me just leave this presentation. I have it here right in my front, and I will use this one. Sorry. So here we go. Yeah, now we are, you see, okay. We were here and then we go now. And what is actually needed to restore biodiversity? Are we aware about that? Should we extensify agricultural production? Should we increase the percentage of ecological focus areas as it was demanded by the Common Agricultural Policy? Should we plant more hedgerows only, or would this be enough? Should we enlarge protected areas and natural reserves and achieve 25% of organic farming until 2030? You name it. I think we can still do this and that to contribute to restore biodiversity. But then, what happened then? What about the consequences of that? What about land productivity? We would certainly reduce land productivity. Where do we produce then our food? Elsewhere? Overseas? Where and how to compensate for less production? And what about the objective always underlined by the Commission policy to contribute? The EU must contribute to global food security when we allow and want to produce less. And what would this mean to restore biodiversity only on a small percentage of agricultural land, if we hopefully could do it all over? And would the proposed solutions be really effective? I think these are questions that we need to ask ourselves. We do actually need produce and make agriculture, perform agriculture, while mimicking ecosystem conditions while producing food. And what are actually natural ecosystem conditions? This means that no one turns the soil upside down, that that the soil is always covered, and that we find a diversity, a big diversity of plant species over the soil. This is a natural habitat, and this provides ecosystem conditions, right? And this is what conservation agriculture is actually about. Let us have a look to what it is. And well, when I talk about conservation agriculture, I talk also about regenerative agriculture, because if you read the several definitions of regenerative agriculture, all of them have the three principles which I am going to mention now at the core of their definition. It means it's continuous or minimum mechanical soil disturbance. The second pillar would be permanent maintenance of a vegetative mulch cover on the soil surface. It's not putting all residues into the soil. And it means species diversification. And according FAO, these principles of conservation agriculture are described as an ecosystem approach to sustainable regenerative agriculture based on the application of these three interlinked, and they should be applied simultaneously, interrelated principles. And they need to be adapted to local conditions. And this means in annual crops, we talk about no-tillage, minimum soil disturbance, or strip seeding. It means crop residue retention at the soil surface. And it means crop rotation, crop diversification. And in woody crops, permanent crops like olive orchards, vineyards, other fruit orchards, you name it, it means that we keep the interrow space covered with spontaneous or sown vegetation and leave the chopped pruning residues behind. And this is how CA looks like in practice. It means no tillage, you see on the top left, using equipment capable to place the seed into an undisturbed and covered soil. It means the ground covers on down left. In permanent crops, in this case a vineyard, it means crop rotation. And it means that we even add more biomass into our system by, sorry. Okay, thank you, sorry. Yeah, no, it's fine, thank you. And that we even increase the input of organic carbon through biomass, and this is transforming atmospheric CO2 into organic carbon through cover crop production, which we again leave on top of the soil. And a few other pictures you see at the left. This is a covered soil that we find under natural conditions, and we can have the same while producing crops. It works. Again, CA is actually a truly sustainable and also feasible and economically feasible approach, which we have a lot of studies about that. And you see here again a few pictures that highlight how conservation agriculture looks like in practice. And here you have the scheme, which between annual and woody crops, what it means. And down there you have the source. I don't know whether this can be seen yet. The source of this biodiversity report. And it's not only biodiversity in the soil that we want to leave undisturbed, it's also above the soil, as you will see. And you have here the soil food web. This looks quite nice. You have several trophic levels, and it ends up by birds that live, of course, above ground, and also animals that are in there. But you only can foster these soil food web if you leave it like this. If you leave it like this. Only on an undisturbed soil you can find such earthworms that rather look like snakes than small earthworms, right? But for that you cannot do this, because this is the root cause of biodiversity decline. It's a kind of turmoil of tillage. And you imagine, I often ask my students, well, imagine you were an earthworm. What would you say if they do this to your house once, twice, 3 times a year? What does it mean? Well, it would mean, well, it's the consequence of an earthquake, wildfires, hurricanes, tsunami, and tornadoes. That's what we are doing to our soils if we do what you see on the left. What about biodiversity then? You see, this is now a few results of our report about conservation agriculture and soil fauna. You have here the contribution of, this was a meta-analysis, and here just a summary. If you want to have a closer look, I can provide you the reference of the report, which is free access. So you see here the contribution of soil fauna on soil mites. It increases 35% with no tillage, up to 85% in permanent crops. The same with bacteriophage nematodes. No-till increase between 14 and 21%, ground covers by 70. Springtails you find 10 times more in CA managed soil, and earthworms you can get up quite a huge number of earthworms if you do not till the soil. And I also use often this This result, this graph that was published by Jill Clapperton in 2012, and she studied several crop rotations and looked into the number of earthworms under the different crop rotations. And these crop rotations were actually organic minimum tillage rotations. It were no tillage, low input rotations, and it was monoculture or continuous no-till wheat rotation. And then I usually ask, please attribute the number of the rotation to the different types of rotation. Well, I did this once in Brussels at the Commission, and well, from your speech, probably it's like this. The organic minimum tillage rotation provide the lowest number of earthworms, and even the monoculture wheat under no-till, where you most probably use at least some glyphosate to control weeds, performs much better when it comes to the number of earthworms. Okay. Enhancement of epigene, fauna, biodiversity. Well, you have it, the different numbers. Arthropods 14.5, 16 on the ground covers, and 300% on the CA practices, earwigs 10%, beetles and so on, and spiders. Even reptiles flourish if you don't till the soil and if you leave it covered. This is the main thing. And this was a study done, a master thesis that was done in Denmark. They looked into different species as well, amongst them arthropod density and diversity. So two different indicators in Denmark. You see, it was not the diversity that differed between organic, conventional, and conservation agriculture, but the density, at least, was significantly higher under CA when compared to conventional and to organic. Well, and even the diversity was a bit lower under conventional, but not necessarily not significant. Also, the pollinating insects, and this is often a big concern for policymakers. Well, the pollinators, well, but they only think about the pollinators flying around. And so what would soil tillage do to pollinators? Nothing, it's mainly the pesticides. But if you knew that 75% of the wild bees nest in the ground, you can imagine that the tillage operations would cause quite some damage, I would say. And you see, tillage-based systems reduce tremendously the occurrence of floral resources. Also, the visits of pollinating insects under CA is much increased, and the decrease in larval emergence is less under soil disturbance. The same happens to mammals, because they do not find enough above ground biomass to feed on, to be sheltered. The seed production left there is also gone. And also the mammals contribute to the integrated disease and pest control. And also, pest predator is much better if you have higher biodiversity. Now coming to the birds, the above ground biodiversity. If they say that in agriculture ecosystems we have a 60% reduced bird population, but if you manage your fields with CA, you have 20% higher species diversity and 300%, more than 300% bird density. And especially when it comes to ground nesting birds, then the damage of tillage is huge, and I will show still some photos about that. You see here, this was the same master thesis in Denmark. They looked at the densities of birds observed before sowing under CA, and tillage under the conventional and organic system, because they compared these three agricultural systems, right? Then the densities of birds observed after sowing and tillage. And you see here the blue and even the brown or orange bars are much bigger than the green ones. And again, later in the season, now in February, not in October or in autumn, you find also much more birds under CA when compared to the two other agricultural systems. And this is also this presentation. Both bird density and bird diversity are significantly increased under CA. And as we often say, you know, certainly the commercial by Martini, it says, no Martini, no habitat, no party, no biodiversity. Okay? And here you see the ground nesting birds, what they do, what they need. You need other type of above ground species that love actually the soil covered and shelter and whatever. So, but on the left down, I think you can't imagine this to happen. Well, this means that we really should, in order to increase ecosystem services provided by our soils, that we need, and ecosystem services including biodiversity, we need to boost CA in Europe to deliver these ecosystem services. But, we are not very far actually in the uptake of conservation agriculture in Europe. It's around 6% of cropland, where elsewhere, especially North and South America and especially Australia and New Zealand, we are much further with the uptake of these practices. So I think there is still a lot to do in order to improve and to reach the objectives set out in the Common Agricultural Policy, in the Green Deal, in the Farm to Fork strategy, in the biodiversity strategy, you name it. They all want to get there, but they don't see the way to get there. So you see, agricultural ecosystems cover about 40% of total area in Europe. This means that we can do a lot in agriculture to improve biodiversity. Conservation agriculture can play a paramount role in achieving the European Green Deal objectives. And we need to actually, CA needs to become a priority within the Common Agricultural Policy to ensure the achievement of European agricultural sustainability and to improve diversity, biodiversity. Thanks a lot for your attention.
Thank you, Gottlieb, for this general introduction to the topic. We need to check now if the second presentation is already available. Just send live in sequence per email. Thank you very much. Marco is always the good helper. Let me give you a brief introduction. As the next speaker, we have Gianluca Pellegrini. Thank you very much that you made it. I mean, you're busy on the show as well. Gianluca is from CNH, so probably a lot going on down there in the other area as well. The educational background is from Valparaiso University, correct? From Indiana, US. Bachelor of Electrical Engineering, and I think a wealth of experience from various industrial roles at CNH. And you're currently head of Precision Technologies EMEA at CNH Industrial. What we will see is the steps that a larger OEM is taking to provide initial solutions and protect our natural habitats. And with that, I'll hand over to Gianluca. As I see, Marco was sweating and working, and we are here. Thank you very much for this.
And it works. Grazie. Convertiamo la presentazione. La presentazione.
C'è il...
Okay. Okay, perfect. So first of all, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me here today. As Benno was introducing, it's really a pleasure. I think there was some very interesting discussion also as I came in prior to lunch. I think a lot of what was being discussed, I think it's resonating also with what I'm going to mention in this brief presentation. And the aim is really to try and give you a little bit of a perspective of how as CNH, as a machinery manufacturer, we are approaching the topic on sustainability, also especially through the technologies that we are trying to bring to market. Before we get deeper into the subject, let me first quickly introduce you, for those of you who might not be familiar or for who CNH is. We are one leading OEM manufacturer with core focus, obviously, in the agriculture segment. We have a long history dating back 180 years with a number of brands. But despite the long legacy that we are bringing to the agriculture market, we are very focused on our digital transformation. So on making sure that we are preparing us and supporting the industry to move on with the changes that are facing us and the industry, especially as we are supporting this sustainability journey. We do this through a number of R&D centers, so a lot of focus on our developments. We have 49 R&D centers across the globe. And as a result of that, we do produce a number of patents on a yearly basis. So this is really the testament that we are really trying to support the industry moving on and supporting farmers developing the way they work. Before getting again on the specifics, on the examples of how we do this, a little bit of a message of why we do what we do and the way we are doing it. It's really to help farmers work smarter, clearer, but doing this working on their own terms. So what do we mean by that? Is to make sure that we are providing innovation that is not for innovation's sake, technology not for technology's sake, but trying to make sure that we can provide technology that is tailored for the different customer types. We do recognize the farmers are very different depending on what they do, what they grow, where they sit. Farming practices are drastically different even within the same countries. And I think we do know a lot in Europe, not to say Italy where we are today. So our role and our challenge is to recognize that and to provide solutions that can accommodate such a characteristics and such a framework. So it is important to provide technology for clear, but we need to make sure that those products, they do adapt and they do support the different ways of working practices for the different farmers. This is the only way that we are going to help the true adoption of technology, because one size fits all, it will be very, very hard to make it sustainable from an industry standpoint to adopt new technologies and new solutions. If we look at the types of products that we try to bring to market, is we really look around the crop cycle. So we go from soil preparation, seed and planting, then the crop protection, and then go into the harvesting, planning, and the fleet management. So we try to look holistically at all the growing cycle, making sure that we try to analyze and we provide solutions at each step of the way for all these different types of customers. So as I said, it's not just about technology, it's about providing tools that those specific farmers will actually be able to utilize. And even more, as a support of that, is to make sure that what we are providing is easily accessible and integrated. So we cannot provide bits and pieces of solutions to our growers. We need to make sure that those products are talking to one another, first of all, and we need to make sure that they are easily accessible. Easily meaning that customers can understand and they can fully maximize their utilization in a relatively quick amount of time. Also considering that technology, again, might not be the most familiar thing for farmers as they come from a different way of farming in the past. Now, how does that link to water? So what is that we are doing relative to water optimization and water consumption? So we know that, again, water management does contribute a great deal on the greenhouse emissions. And in agriculture, I mean, if you look, the groundwater is representing less than 1% of the overall water present on Earth, and we only use a fraction of that actually for agricultural purposes. So all in all, we recognize the fact that it's extremely important that we use that resource as carefully as we can. And then from a OEM standpoint, how we do this is obviously trying to apply precision technologies both to irrigation, but even more to agricultural practices. So this is our, let's say, contribution to try and make the use of water more sustainable by providing technologies that can fit the way farmers are operating, as I was saying previously, and allowing more sustainable practices in the use of water. Now, if we go a little bit more practical in how we do this, we attack the product portfolio that we bring to market in a holistic fashion, as I was also mentioning previously. We do this through different products, and I'll try to make a bit of a more practical example. Especially if we look at the first bullet with the guidance systems and the third bullet with application and implement control, we can think about land leveling and making sure that we can prepare our fields in the most optimal way through the use of data management, through the use of automation tools, GPS accuracy, and so on. So we want to make sure that the water that we receive, that the soil receives, is properly distributed through the fields, avoiding areas that can be overly watered and areas that could actually result over dry. We know this is going to have an impact on the growth of the crops, and this is obviously going to have an impact on their stress, which obviously will result in the application of the products because of the disease pressure. So again, if we look at guidance systems, automation, autonomy there, and the way that we control implements through automation, then again, land leveling is a good example to make sure that, again, we ensure that the field is properly leveled, to make sure that we make the best use of the of precipitations during the season. This is obviously result coupled with crop sensors and variable rate applications, because, as I was saying, as in the crop growing cycle, then obviously there are disease pressure and things we need to tackle, and through the use of variable rate application maps, so also to connected services, farm management practices, then we are able also to optimize the application of chemicals and make sure that we can make the least use of those, also thanks to better, like I was saying, by controlling the disease pressure and by controlling the health of the crop as it grows during the season. Connected services, so data management is a critical aspect. So the last bullet here on this slide, it's a critical aspect of making sure that we know what to do, when to do it during the season, and the kind of products that we want to use. I will make a practical example. Data management here, it's not just about the product that we provide, but again, we go back to the ecosystem approach, which is not just the ecosystem of the products, it's also the ecosystem of getting together the different partners, the different digital players within the agri industry, to make sure that we can combine the expertise of the different players, which means we might bring a machinery type of expertise, but we understand that there are also other players in the industry that bring in different types of agronomic expertise, which, coupled with our machinery expertise, can actually allow a boost in terms of providing sustainability data, sustainability actions to our customers. And I will just go deeper into the next slide in an example. So here the message is really, single players cannot do it alone. It's really important that we are working as a group, as an industry, and we are partnering up, in our case, in the digital space, to make sure that we make the best use of the competencies that every player is bringing to the table within the industry toward this goal. So, and as an example, this is what we are doing in Uzbekistan. We already have another couple of pilots in UK and also in Holland already active. So we are bringing the competencies of CNH, the digital competencies of CNH, when it comes to connectivity, which means data management, from a machinery standpoint. And coupling this with X-Farm, some of you might have heard the company X-Farm. So their agronomic expertise and their in-field sensing. So in a way, what we are doing is we are providing our farmer with a comprehensive set of data. So both from a machinery perspective and also from an in-field sensing perspective, so that we can actually define a comprehensive CO2 calculation, so a true sustainability calculation for our farmers. Now, with regards of the use of water specifically, this is extremely important, as having those sensors in the field allows us to better understand what is the level of moisture in the field, water content, water precipitation. It allows us to keep a record track of everything that has happened in the field in an ultra local fashion, because obviously those sensors are extremely specific. And it allows us to then go and calculate with the agronomic algorithms that obviously are sitting in the cloud, understand what is the level of disease pressure that we have at any point in time in the field, which then provides the farmer with absolute accurate data to tell the farmer, hey, this is the level of disease stress that the plant has, this is the right time to irrigate, or this is the right time to go in the field and apply the product. And then talking about going in the field and applying the product, this is where then the link with CNH comes in, when it comes to then link it to machinery, link into the precision application, making sure that we apply the right dose of products where we need it, how much we need it. And that's where what you were seeing in the previous slides with the different sets of product. So again, here it's about working as an industry conglomerate, trying to make sure that we can complement skill sets and core competencies from different players, so that we can then have the farmer benefit from all of this from a more holistic approach. So not just a single machinery approach, but machinery, sensors, agronomic algorithms, all in real time, and again, easily accessible by the customer, either through an app, through the cloud, so that he can basically plan real time his activities in the field. This is when it comes to data management. Then if we go beyond that, then obviously there is another aspect, which is full autonomy, automation. We've done a number of investments. We have a really deep focus in terms of getting our machinery more automated and then eventually into full autonomous state. But let me focus more than on the technology per se. Let me focus on a little bit on the farming operational aspect of what the technology is most likely going to cause for the customers. So we are trying to, there is going to be a process with automation coming in and potentially not having the operator sitting in the cab, where farming operations will have to be reskilled. What I mean by that, I mean, instead of having the operator spending time in the cab, maybe we'll have the operator or the farming staff look at other activities, which might be more linked or more related to data management, planning, field planning, making sure. So going back to what I was showing before, so having the machine run itself while the operator or the farming or the farm owner or whoever that might be, they can spend time on other tasks. So they can spend time on different tasks. So in a way, this will actually bring some degree of reskilling to the to our farms, because we can free up time to then do something else. And that something else can be plan your next activity, better plan your next operations through the use of data, through the use of other tools. So be more productive rather than sitting on a cab trying to operate a machine, which eventually will optimize itself in the future. And also today we see, I mean, if we look at combines, I think combines are a beautiful example of automation. I mean, combine automation, it's really fascinating because of the degree of adjustments that the machine needs to make, which is not anymore made by the operator, but the machine is making it itself. So, and this is really fascinating. So we are allowing farms to reskill, rethink the way they work. This is really what autonomy is really going to bring in. And this is also what this is also going to allow, we hope, is generational renewal. So trying to make farming more appealing for younger generation, and we know how important it is to attract younger generation to keep investing in this field and in this industry. And we can do this by, again, reskilling, rethinking the work of a farmer, and making more digitalized. But again, making more digitalized by also freeing up some time that before maybe it was devoted for more physical tasks, or for, again, running a machine in the field, while tomorrow maybe in part is already today, but they are dedicated on other activities which are more related to data management, field planning, and then letting the machine run itself. An example of how we are going into this direction is the innovation that we were just awarded here at EMA. This is the Advanced Vision Assisted Guidance. So basically, specifically for orchard vineyards applications, based on machine vision and obviously artificial intelligence, we can let the machine drive itself and define itself by analyzing real time as it drives through the rows. How the plants are, I mean, the health of the plant, and then what the plants are needing in real time, while the machine is, without needing GPS, with a leader system, it can drive itself through the rows. So I think this is a good example of how we can bring innovation to the market, and we can bring innovation that is easily accessible. As I said, this is not a GPS-based system, so obviously we bring in between steps in addition to the just what is already a traditional type of doing automation, and make it more customer friendly, let's say. And as a part of this, like I said before, automating the machine, it's not just the end game, but the end game is to make sure that we can make the best use of products, of inputs. And this is where also controlling what we are applying, where and how much, like you were seeing before, the machine as it moves through, with machine vision, it recognizes how much the plants is exactly needed at which stage, without much of pre-planning. So obviously this is even taking away the burden of the data analytics portion, data management, which in some cases, like I said, might not be the easiest activity for all of the farmers. So this is taking this away, because the machine, as it drives through, it recognizes, analyzes the data from the vision sensors, and then it automatically controlling how much product we want to apply each step of the way as the machines moves through the rows. And as we know, this brings substantial benefits and substantial savings from an input standpoint. So just to close, the examples I brought, it's important that we recognize the ecosystems of services, the ecosystems of products. But like I said, it's not just about the ecosystem of products, it's the ecosystem of core competencies and the fact of working together as an industry to bring those to market. Everyone in the industry, we have a variety of applications, variety of products. We need to make sure that we as an industry, we move together, making sure that everyone is contributing with its core competencies. And all in all, we are making it easy for the customer to access those products. It makes very little benefit as an industry to provide those products if we cannot also engage the customers, the farmers, and make sure that we can penetrate the market, make sure that those technologies are adopted. So we can bring the most beautiful technologies, but if we cannot make them adopted by farmers, and we know how challenging this might be, then it will be a wasted effort. So this is extremely important, not just to build the ecosystem of products, but also the ecosystem of partnerships within the different players of the industry to make them easy to be utilized by our farmers. So connected in the data world, it's an important aspect. Automation is the second aspect, and both of them together then will drive a more sustainable future if we can do this together as an industry player. Thank you.
Gianluca, thank you very much for the insights from the CNH perspective on how you address sustainable solutions and lowering inputs with automation and technologies, and the example of water As we know, water is one of the ecosystem services we receive from nature, so preserving clean water is one of the examples we have discussed. We also see for sure that the adoption, Gottlieb would for sure love to see us do more and farmers go more into different directions, but we are reflecting as well the reality on the market and the demand and the technology steps that we can provide at current status. Thank you very much. I think we are good in time, and there is a coffee break now, correct? 15 minutes, and then we will back at 3:15 with the final presentation from Peter Fröhlich on this session. Thank you very much. So let me introduce to you Peter Fröhlich. He's here with me. He has a bachelor in agronomy and an MBA from St. Gallen University for entrepreneurship. He spent, I think, 6 years at Syngenta, roughly 6 to 7 years. And he's founder and CEO of AgriCircle. And he will give us some perspectives on the topic from an entrepreneurial, from a startup, and from a digital side. Peter, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Benno. Great to be here. As Benno introduced, I'm actually the CEO of AgriCircle. I'm also a farmer, so I want to make the two connections so that you also see what actually regenerative agriculture means in terms of farming. So what we're doing is we're trying to empower farmers to nurture earth. And that's not just kind of a tagline, that's what we truly want to do. And I want to, before I enter what we're doing, I want to just create a bit of awareness. We believe there's a major problem we have on earth that we have to solve with agriculture. And that starts with plant or biomass productivity. Not many people make the connection between what all we use is biomass. And especially oil, gas, coal, that's usually seen as something else, but it's not. So all the fossil fuels we are using is actually biomass. We talk oil, coal, gas. We then go to wood, paper, textile, food. You cannot work iron without biomass. You cannot produce concrete without biomass. So if we don't have biomass available, there's no life on this planet, at least no higher life. So it's pretty empty, as you see on the right side. I'm presenting that to you because we actually have, and there's major studies on this one, a big issue there. So over the last thousands of years on Earth, we had a 50% decrease in biomass productivity. And there's quite a number of studies, they all come to the same conclusion. That's geological studies on actually Earth history. And if you look at FAO numbers, we have a 50% reduction in soil. It ranges between 30 and 70, depending on what study you look at, but overall you get to about the 50%. And that's causal, and that's correlated. And we have a biodiversity crisis because that also leads to a 50% reduction in life. And when you think of it, how life is created on the planet, it's microbes in the soil interacting with plants, allowing higher life to thrive. We have cut down in soil, that means we have cut down in life. We make this up with old ancient biomass called oil, coal, and gas, but that gap is there. And actually you can translate that also to us. I mean, the soil is a digester as we are one. It's like we offer the earth half to eat. There's half in the stomach. And do that for long enough as a person, you become half in life. Pretty simple. It's an analogy that's not just taken from somewhere. That's actually what happens on our planet right now. And we believe the party is rocking forever. No, it's not. I once made a calculation on what is the ancient biomass we're using, how long would it last in a work life in terms of savings, because we're using our savings. Guess a number, how long would that be? So work life, about 40 years of work. How long would that last? our biomass that we're using in terms of the Earth's perspective? Less than 2 seconds. Well, we think the party is rocking forever. It's not. So we urgently need to fix this, and that's actually our ecological income on the planet. And guess what? Only agriculture can fix this. And I'm 100% convinced if we are not able to fix this in agriculture, we will fail in terms of climate crisis and biodiversity crisis. It's like you manage a company and we only look at cost, and we have identified our largest cost factor, which is actually fuel and energy production. So, but that's not true, because it's like you manage a company just looking at cost, never looking at income. It's not going to work. Any company you do that goes bust. And so will we not be able to actually manage our planet if we are not investing in agriculture to solve this? It's even worse. Farmers start to feel now that climate change and biodiversity loss is actually declining their productivity, which even increases the speed of decrease of our ecological income. So we have a lot of wind erosion, degraded soils, heavy rains, erosion from water. Look at what happened in Spain. But it's not only Spain. You can go back to Germany a few months ago. You can even further back to Austria, to Hungary, Poland. So it's everywhere. And we believe that the regenerative agriculture principles and regenerative agriculture can fix this. So we need urgently to have the biomass productivity being back. And our numbers show that region farmers are able to do this, but it's a quite different agriculture. It bases on 5 principles. We even add another one, which is the number 6. That's like it's defined by Gabe Brown, which is context. So we have context, and there's a lot in common with conservation agriculture. So we talk about maximizing soil cover, minimizing soil disturbance, always having living roots in the soil, increasing biodiversity, meaning you have more crops actually on the land, more levels of crops, and you have integration of animals. And we even say purposeful integration of animals. To explain this, you could have chicken in a barn. You have chicken now on your farm, so they're integrated. But to us, they're truly integrated when they follow their purpose. Think of them being below trees, eating insects that are also pests that actually could attack your apple trees. That's the purposeful integration of animals. Good, now we have a problem. And the problem is industry driven. It comes from certifications and so on. It's that even farmers that want to do this, they're actually held back by our policy frameworks. Because what we have today is people in offices defining measures, enforcing and validating them up onto farmers top down. And we believe that's actually the major flaw in the system that we need to fix. That's what's making us fail. And we need to urgently change this and actually revert that to a bottom-up paradigm. So what we want to have is a farmer-centric approach. And I'm one of the EARA founding farmers, so that's the European Alliance for Region Ag. That's like the 70 most innovative farmers in Europe that have come together. And what we have agreed on is that regenerative agriculture, it's a context-specific, life-enhancing process of continuous improvement. And the life-enhancing is linked to actually regenerating the soil so that it has more power to create life again, starting with more plant life being there. So what we want is to see a process that we would then also call a certification, but we need to challenge the farmers by the right outcomes. And there's a bit of confusion about outcomes because the European Commission sees, for example, no-till as an outcome. But that's no outcome, that's a tool. So you're doing no-till to increase plant life, to increase soil cover, to increase soil health. That's the outcome. You shouldn't care about the tool. The tool is what the farmer should actually contextualize and use to maximize the outcome. And that's important. And that's where we come in, because we make that measurable and manageable. That's what we have been working on for the last at least 7 years, uniquely. So how we do that is we do 3 things in a sense. The first one is we compare a farm with its region based on photosynthesis activity, so that's the plant life that the farm has created, and soil cover, which we have identified as the best proxy to how much you actually protect your soil. So think of it like this: the more you eat when you have diarrhea because your stomach is not really working, that has no use. So your stomach needs to be well. That's the soil cover that ensures this one. And when we compare, you see there on the left image, the black areas, that's all kind of taken out. That's forests, that's lakes, that's infrastructure. So we really compare agricultural land with the farmland. So you're actually having a benchmark that's big enough, but small enough to be contextualized. And now you can actually look into what farmers do in their farm that adds to life and that takes away life. The next thing is that we look into soil vitality, and we have developed new algorithms where with the satellite, we tell where to soil sample. We need then to soil sample. It's not doable without soil sampling. But not only for carbon, but actually to also get numbers on minerals, on pH, and so on. Think again in terms of your own nutrition, so you can eat more, you can have the best working kind of stomach. If you don't give yourself the right minerals and so on, it's not going to work. You're not becoming more fit. We're not talking fat here, you're talking fit. You're not becoming more life. So that needs to be there. And the last thing is we want to do that in the highest efficiency possible. So we want to see the yield, we want to see the inputs on animals, we want to see fuel and energy used, nutrition used, so kind of the mineral fertilizers, but also organic fertilizers brought to the farm, taken from the farm, water use, that's it. So we could actually simplify today's data gathering on farms by a big extent. And that would free up money that we urgently need for the transition. And we're talking not a little bit of money. Think of it, money in data acquisition, usually then labels follow this. So all the label creation, label certification, policy making, policy enforcement. We're talking billions we could free up for the transition we urgently need. What we will change through this is that certification is not anymore a top-down, cover my ass process, but it's becoming a feedback loop. And that's what we need. We need constant improvement. So we need this life-enhancing process of continuous improvement. We want to be a little bit better every day and every year. And just to give you a number, if you're 3% better, and we're talking small steps, if you're 3% better year on year, you're double as good in a generation. And that's what we need. We need the small steps, not the big bang. Good, so we have a very simple framework. It's actually 4 things we are going to monitor. It's the landscape productivity, it's the landscape protection, the vitality, and resource efficiency. And there's a lot of technology from your side that can come in to actually increase and boost that resource efficiency and the outcomes. Good. Now what our framework also does, it's getting rid of the fog for the farmer. he starts to understand what he needs to change and to act with confidence. And why is that? When you compare a region with the farm, think of it of an equation. Many things are the same. So it actually boils down to what really makes a difference. And that's what we want to identify, prioritize, contextualize, and continuously improve. Huh? Good. If we do that, we get to a cost-efficient toolkit, because that's what we need. It's trustful because it's data and a solid process. So it's true points. It's simple. And we see that farmers transform 10 times quicker. And I tell you why. Think of it like you have a problem with moving and sleeping. You go to the doctor tells you, my dear, from tomorrow onwards, you go running. And actually, you wear a blindfold at night. And then when you do that for long enough, we track it down, and you get a premium on your health insurance. Now, you will become dependent on that economically if everyone does that at a certain time. And that's exactly how we treat farmers today. But now here's the point. You as a farmer might actually sleep best when you read a book. 15 minutes, you fall asleep. Now you cannot even do it anymore. Or you hate running, you like biking, but you have to run. And that's exactly how we treat farmers, and that's why we fail. That's why we need to move from top down to bottom up. That's very important, and that's what we can enable. Now I want to have a quick word about precision farming, because I think that's a major flaw the industry is actually trying to chase. So when we do all that, we will increase the life in the soil. And when we increase the life in the soil, we become more resilient, and the differences in the fields become marginal. You see it here. So what we're chasing today might not be the carrot to be chased. Huh? And I have not only that example, I see it on my farm in life, in real time. It's becoming less of an importance. It's more of an importance how you tackle this systemically. And that's what we can help with. Now, what changes when you want to do that? What changes for machines that we need? So, to give you a perspective, that's actually my soil ready to plant. That's after tillage. That's my soil. That's now, I plant the next crop into exactly this. I, if needed, treat it with glyphosate. In this case, not even, because that's crops that die over winter. I drill winter wheat into this, roll it, done. No herbicide, nothing. Here you see the process at work. So that's how it's working. That's us drilling. For certain crops, you need to strip till. They like to have the soil a bit more loose. Talking in my case of oilseed rape and sugar beets. So we're doing strip till. That's like what we have been doing here is after winter wheat, we did a no-till buckwheat, and now I'm doing a strip till into this. I drill oilseed rape into the strips, I roll it, done, no herbicide, no need. That's it, all nature. This is us planting or seeding pumpkins, so you would say that's a bit of a sensitive crop. In this case, I need 2 liters of glyphosate per hectare to kill the interim crop enough that it's, or the cover crop enough so that it's gone. Strip till and then actually seed the pumpkins into this. Average yield. No herbicides. No fungicides, no insecticides, no nothing. This is how it looks after we have sown corn. That's direct drilling of corn in one of my fields. Yeah, this is like my machine look like. So one thing I see more and more is that you want to have it being in terms of load like balanced. So thinking more of having stuff in front of the tractor, in the back of the tractor. What I always struggle with is getting stuff from the front to the back. So that's something that I don't know yet why it's not integrated in tractors directly. Would be a huge thing to do. This is how my corn looks after a few weeks. You see it, no herbicide, so but there's the plant cover. I think Gottlieb showed some similar situation, so no need to do any herbicide application in this. No hoeing, so a lot different from organic. Now, what I showed you is just a start. That's actually from my friend Massimo from Sulzano. He's one of our EARA farmers. That's how he farms. So that's strips of Bologna. That's a very rapid growing tree. He then cuts the branches and feeds that to cows and sheep. And it's actually, they like that more than grass. And in between he's planting vegetables. And all in all, that produces more plant cover or similar plant cover to a forest producing vegetables. I don't want to show you what the average plant productivity of a vegetable producer is today. That's disastrous. But that's a completely different approach. But what you would need here in terms of management is you need machinery to cut the trees, collect the leaves, the branches, so that you can feed them. You need machines to work the vegetables. So there's a lot that can be done here in terms of robotics, in terms of machines, in terms of sensors. But it's a completely different application case to what most machinery producers have in mind today. And that's something to be thought about, because I truly believe the precision farming we're following today is a dead end. We need to rethink this urgently. What is also going to be important is how we treat waste. And I can tell you, this is manure, and you would almost be ready to eat it. It smells like really good earth. This is not what you imagine looking at manure. This is not stinking at all. And I truly believe when something stinks, we have a problem. That's our sensors that tell us it's not good. Then it's also not good for our stomach when we don't like something, so it's not good for the soil, which is a stomach and a digester too. So I believe there's an opportunity here that's rather large on how you manage all the waste, and that got to be changed. That's me at home. So what I do is I do actually air water, because what many people, one step back, so what regenerative does is working less with sterilization, working more with biology. So our today's approach to produce food is first we kill everything and then we start the production. That's our way to manage in many things. And the biggest thing, I didn't realize that myself, doing that is, for example, like tilling the stubble of the cereals. You do that in summer, you bring the black earth up, it heats up to 60, 65 degrees, and we know life dies when we overheat 42 degrees, we die. Guess what happens to soil life? It's all dying. So we actually kill the utmost life in the upper 10 centimeters through that stubble tillage. And not even that, if we do that for long enough at 65 degrees, we inactivate wheat seeds. That's what farmers do. It's a fumigation. So that goes against the principle of regeneration, which is a life-enhancing process of continuous improvement. You want to work with that biology, and you want to actually actively influence that you have the right biology on the field. So what I do here is I aerate any water that I spray on plants. The reason for that is our tap water is treated. Don't forget that, our tap water is treated. So you need to actually make it ready for the plant again. And I work with a lot of compost seed production or any other extraction of of compost, of any other material to actually influence bacteria in the right way. And fungi. It's very important to have both. And there's a lot to be done in this area still. We don't know how to measure this accurately. Measurement systems are not integrated in the machines we're using. It's Stone Age. We're at Stone Age when it comes to this. We need to actually move into this much quicker, and we need to bring new technology to this. What we at AgriCircle do is we want to become a framework for farmers in Europe, and we believe that we can only be consistent in regeneration when we also have a regenerative company set up. So we look into purpose economy. You can Google that. It's purpose.org, what that is. It's actually not trying to, it's a way to try to manage capitalism in a better way. So what we will do in AgriCircle is we will involve 4 stakeholder groups that will have the votes in the company, not only some advisory board. So the voters will be the farmers, and we will start with the European Alliance for Region Ag. That's going to be there. And we also work to the World Farmers Organization. Probably also need to talk to Gottlieb on this one. The industry, that's the SCI platform representing 180 food producers and input companies. Nature, representing nature and civil society. So currently we have commitment from the Rainforest Alliance to actually be part of this, but also we're talking to WWF and then the employees. And we know if we get this going, if we go bottom up, if we have this cycle of improvement, a feedback loop as a certification will be 10 times faster to transition. And when we are 10 times faster to transition, we will also need you machinery producers to be 10 times faster in adopting, so that we have the right tools to actually get it done. And we do that to have healthy soils, healthy plants, healthy people, and a healthy life. Thank you.
I think we have time for questions and for the discussion, so we'll move over to the next phase. Maybe recap a bit. We had the first presentation about the regenerative agriculture, scientific backgrounds and strategies. Then we had the reality check of a larger OEM. What are we doing? What is the market currently demanding in an overwhelming way, and how do we innovate in technologies? And a different approach from a new entrepreneur who uses digital, and I forgot that, I'm sorry, that you're a farmer as well, so that also trying the stuff he's inventing and suggesting to do. And that should give us enough context and I think perspective to discuss. And I hope the selection of the speakers was, I would say, provoking enough, but the statements were broad enough, so you have questions, and I'll open the floor for discussion. Here is the first, or there? I don't know. First here, first there. I didn't see it. Start with the here, I think. Was there the question? Ah, you have it, John. Okay.
It's a web button.
There is a question.
I have a mic here. If not, as Joe knows, I'm loud enough that you can hear.
I will keep it.
My question is for the first speaker, Mr. Bosch. In the USA, we're seeing a great increase in strip till production, and we saw a strip till example just now. In strip till, is that closer to minimum tillage or to conservation agriculture? Because you have a strip that you don't till ever, and you have a strip that you till sometimes. As for the ecological services for the various animals and insects and worms, which is it closer to if you till a strip?
Well, it depends on how to till the strip. If you know rotative implement, then it's quite bad. But if it was just a vertical tine implement, then I would say it's preferable than to min-till that covers 100% of the surface, because there you interfere on 100% of your area. You depends a bit with strip till. You easily can leave what's normally caused conservation tillage, at least 30% of the soil covered. With strip till, I think you can even leave more percentage of the soil covered, and you, as you said, you do not disturb at all the part in between the strips.
Thank you, please.
Yeah, maybe a good reference there is the FAO definition of no-till. So if you till less than, what is it, Gottlieb, help me, 25% of the soil, less than 25, then it's seen as a no-till operation. If it's more, it's conservation tillage. So I think it's not a bad description of what it is. If it's less than 25%, I would still say that's very close to a no-till operation, depending on, well, you cannot go that deep, because if you go deeper, then it's a larger area than 25%. So it's a very shallow strip tillage if you talk it to be a no-till. And I would stick to that definition. I think it's a good one.
We have one question from Hermann Auenhammer that came in my chat. My question for Mr. Barsch: we have been discussing conservation agriculture now for more than 50 years at many universities worldwide and have achieved an area of 6% in European practice application. So a lot must have gone wrong. What would you deduce from this development, and what are in your mind the three most important options that can be applied?
Well, yeah, if you compare Europe with other continents, North America, South America, Australia, and so on, then, well, we must say that something went wrong. But I think we have to look at the drivers that made conservation agriculture increase so much elsewhere. And I think you can have several drivers to boost conservation agriculture. It can be natural disasters, problems with erosion, other things can go wrong, but a very important driver is economics, as we did see in the US elections recently, but no. But especially when it comes to economics, I knew personally farmers that were pioneer farmers in Brazil, Herman Bartz, for example. And well, it was, one thing was the natural condition with a lot of erosion. The other one was the economics and the costs of production. And the same happens in US, in Australia, the costs of production. If you have the economic pressure, then the first thing, if you cannot increase your productivity, then you have to reduce costs to do it. And I often use this example. In Europe, there is not enough economic pressure because due to the subsidies to the farmers through direct payments, the farming sector is still in a very nice comfort zone, and the pressure is not enough to change. And change also in Europe, I think the mental change is not so easy to implement, because Europe has been practicing traditional agriculture for millennia almost, more than elsewhere, and changing deeply entrenched things is much more difficult than if something is rather recent, if it's more profit driven, if it's more, well, subject to external drivers than tradition and mental entrenchment, I would say. So this is something why in Europe we are still behind, although we do have a lot of natural conditions. If we look at the drought spells we are increasingly facing, if we look at severe rainfall events, everything is actually calling for protecting the soil much better. And we can do this with the implementation of conservation agriculture. But still, what is needed actually to make mindset change?
I want to add quickly. So, I mean, Europe is completely the laggard in this 7%, but we have like 70 in South America. So I talked to Brazilian growers, why is that the case? One is the economics, the other is they simply cannot do it without, because the heavy rains they have and all that stuff. So they have environmental conditions that urge that you do it this way. And now you can look backwards. In Europe, we had very soft rains. I mean, when I was a kid, we had a rain event being maybe 5 milliliter, very soft, distributed over an entire day. Guess what we have today? So to me, the more important question is, where are we going from where we are? And that's actually absolutely in favor of looking into no-till on conservation tillage, because we have the more heavy rains, we have the actually more drought conditions, so we have more of these extremes. And the more you go towards these extremes, the more you're into preferable conditions when you do no-till. So I believe as a machinery producer, I would watch what's going on in the no-till and conservation agriculture very closely, because I believe in 10 years, we as Europeans will simply have to do it for environmental reasons. No choice.
I think you were somewhere 2 questions here, maybe one after the other. Bear with me if I didn't count correctly. We still have enough time.
Yes, I thank you. It's very, very inspiring talks, and we really ought to pay more attention to those things. But if you say there is some drivers to it, in Western Europe, and let's say the lowlands, they eat potatoes and they have sugar beets. I think these are just other drivers that prevent people from doing no-till. And so we have to change the diets. It's in the consumers then that we have to go. Maybe you have some remarks on that.
I have a remark on that. When your SOC is large enough, you can do potatoes with almost no till. So the way you do potatoes in actually ancient production systems is that you actually put the potato on the soil and then you cover it with a mulch layer of at least 10 centimeters. And with region ag practices, you can absolutely do this. So it's not the potato that's the problem, it's the how you grow the potato that's the problem. Very important here.
Well, I would also still add that, then you would recommend, instead of eating potatoes, we should go for meat that's grown on the grassland. And grassland is, I know, I was joking. Yeah, sure. I know. Potato is certainly a problem crop for no-till. You need some soil movement, that's right, but you can minimize it and still then repair this minimized soil disturbance by doing cover crops and restore soil health very, very quickly. We do have events on a farm next to Brussels where we could show this, that region ag is also possible for growing sugar beet and potato with some soil movement.
Maybe one idea to share here. So we had growers in the region ag movement, that's about how much you can achieve when you do bottom up, that actually spreaded a crop, winter wheat, before the sugar beet harvesting. So before you went in with the Holmer in this case, or whatever it is, with the big machines. So they just spreaded this, and then you went in with the Holmer that's treating the soil actually shallowly to collect the sugar beets. They had a beautiful wheat coming. It was not the standard yield, but it was a good yield. But what you could be doing is, why not to spread a cover crop with the harvesting machines? Something to think about, because then you have immediately something growing after the harvest, and that's exactly what you need. So I truly believe if we think of innovation, we can get this done. We don't have the right machines now, we don't have the right processes now. And that's what you as a machinery producer and being in that industry need to think about, because it's, I swear, it's going, mark my words, it's going to change.
Yep, if you can.
So my question is directed to the control traffic farming. I really did not notice that this is a topic which is still under your consideration. What would be the definition for you for control traffic farming? So this is really the subdividing of the area which are arable farmed into a traffic area and area where all the traffic is out of use. So this must increase the biodiversity in these areas. What is your definition of controlled traffic farming in your opinion?
My opinion on controlled traffic farming is it's when you go into regenerative agriculture, it becomes pretty useless. So there is quite a number of research that's been done, and I don't know why we are not getting that back to this. It really depends on the soil strength. So what's your impact driving over the soil? What's the soil strength being able to absorb this? I'm telling you, when you till less, that's your first improvement. Drivability goes up big time. If I drive on my field, it looks, honestly, I'm not kidding, it looks like garden earth. You can just take a spade, do this, and take it out. No need to actually push. And then, but when you drive over it, no big change. You still have the structure, you can do this. So I truly believe that stuff like this is much, much less important than you think. But what is most important to me is when I till, I don't know where I'm driving when I'm driving in such a big cover crop. So where do I go? How do I plant this without GPS? It's almost impossible. You're going to drive half a meter right, a meter left. It's like, at least for me, that's personally, that's why I use GPS technology to actually just have it being more convenient. I mean, you can probably get this right also in the huge cover crop without it, but it's a big effort.
Well, just to add, well, controlled traffic farming is actually, well, for the Australians is actually the fourth principle of conservation agriculture. But I think there's no doubt that without tillage and with soil cover especially, the soil bearing capacity is much higher. So if you do not use huge machinery, then it's worthless. And another downside of controlled traffic is, in Europe at least, is that you need large equipment to make sense, right? And most of our farm sizes and fields do not have the necessary size to apply controlled traffic farming conveniently.
There was another question, I think, here. One-to-one, or was it you?
I make it quick. Question, what would be the impact of regenerative agriculture on yield? Because most of these practices is like we are going backward in history of agriculture and doing practices that used to be done before, but now we are, I mean, in the long history.
So what I see on my farm is when I started the transition, my yields were down up to 30%. And obviously you're doing mistakes, because think of it like this. You plowed for 30 years, you know exactly when you're into, let's say, borderline conditions, how you do that. Now you go for a no-till drill, or whatever. You have as a farmer no clue in this current situation with that soil moisture, that amount of clay, that amount of SOC, that seed, that crop, how do I do it perfectly? You're not yet there, so you do mistakes. And what I see now is that the yields come back. And actually in some crops they're above before. So I would not say that regenerative agriculture is decreasing yield. It is decreasing yield when you decrease input levels. And I'm against, I mean, you have a lot of guys that say, oh, you do regenerative agriculture and then you don't have to fertilize anymore. My personal take on it, complete bullshit. Because we take all the minerals from the field, we as humans today, ship it to the cities, and all our extractions, we destroy them. So the minerals end up in landfills and the sea. As long as we are not bringing them back, we need fertilizer being shipped from other places, because otherwise we're depleting the land. And I can show it to you on my farm. Areas that I have not fertilized for 5 years, areas that I have not fertilized for 30 years, areas where I have brought manure back, areas where I didn't bring manure back for natural conservation schemes and so on. You see it exactly. If you're not having the same level in terms of fertilization, meaning what you take from the field, you bring back to the field. If you have enough in your soil, that's a different story. Then you can think of, do I plant a buckwheat that's actually liberating phosphorus in the soil? Do I plant a serradella that's actually liberating potassium in the soil? So then again, work with biology and the plants that can bring you the nutrients when they're there. But be aware, you're depleting year on year. It's not going to get more. But you want to have even levels and you want to have the right kind of distributions in your soil. And you need to fertilize when there's not enough. Full stop. So many people think they don't have to do anymore, and in our measurement framework, they go down. So it's measurable through our schemes, and if it's not going down, yields are not going down. Full stop.
Yeah, just another word to that. It depends a lot from which soil conditions you start doing conservation agriculture, regenerative agriculture. First. Second, if yields are going down, then you are not doing things in the right way, as Peter already said. You have to learn. You see, if you do conventional agriculture, you apply a recipe that was developed over decades and centuries, right? Not so with conservation agriculture. You have to learn, and learn from your site-specific conditions. Otherwise, you will fail. What we can see, if it's applied correctly and continuously over time, yields are able to increase because you improve your soil condition. Above all, soil organic carbon. And from many reports, especially from South America, Brazil, Argentina, they were able to improve yields over time with less inputs. This is possible, but you have to do the right thing.
I have at least 3 questions I've seen, Wegener, Mantovani, and Andre. Then I think we are running a bit out of time, so I go in this order, and then we can choose who has the last. The good thing is that our speakers are still there. Okay, got approval for another 10 minutes, actually. You have the microphone? Yeah, Mr. Wiener. Oh, okay. If it's okay, we have more microphones. Okay,
Thank you very much.
You're the next one. Yeah.
I have a maybe critical question, or at least comment. Do we follow the right approach at the moment? We try to permanently enhance the production system but in my eyes, the problem is the production system itself. It has been optimized over decades to be managed with machinery becoming bigger and bigger with all the problems we are facing today, and now we're trying to make this system sustainable. And don't we have to go upside down and ask what kind of production system is giving the plant itself best conditions under restrictions of economical, ecological, and social aspects in the first step, and then ask ourselves what kind of techniques for such a system are the best ones. And I think that the aspect which was presented about regenerative agriculture is a first step in this direction, but from my point of view, there are also several more wheels you can turn to get the production system from a plant point of view much more better.
I want to answer that one. So we eat about 8 plants at the global scale, mainly. We have 20,000 edible species on this planet. So we could actually ask ourselves, have we done the breeding with the right ones? Actually, I think it's pure coincidence that we ended up with the ones we have today. So you could ask yourselves all the questions and start from scratch. I believe that's just far from reality and far from what we can do. So now here there comes the pragmatism. What can we do with what we have? Because you cannot just take another plant and replace 1,000 years of breeding, or let's say 400 years of breeding with this. It's not going to happen. So, yeah, sure. So I believe that we need a stepwise approach, and the plants are guiding us the way. That's what we're doing. We're doing a contextualized measure. If you're actually boosting your plant's life, that means you're actually creating more preferable situations for those plants to grow. And this in a step-by-step approach. I mean, also when you go for no-till, Gottlieb told it correctly. If you go, for example, for that one too quick, just plowing and tomorrow you're just no-till, that's the best recipe for a big yield lump. So you need to have a stepwise change. And we believe, yes, you're right, but we need a stepwise change to achieve this. But we need to be guided by the right outcomes. And that's what we try to bring into the next CAP even. We want that farmers are measured against the plant life they create, against the soil cover they create, against the soil health they have, and how efficient they achieve this. Full stop. And then, I mean, why do we think about this? I'm telling you, if you give that tasks to the millions of farmers that are out there, they have the brains and the brain power and the smartness and the power to innovate. You just need to watch them, you need to find the right ones, and you need to get that stuff and serialize it, and we will move into the right direction. I truly believe in this. So the farmers have the power to make that happen if we let them make it too and challenge them against the right topics and measures. I'm very convinced.
Okay. Well, I'd like to congratulate all the 3 speakers, but one thing that, with my comment, when we talk about soil conservation or conservation tillage, the most important item is soil type. The decision to go for no tillage or minimal tillage or conventional tillage is depend on type of the soil or condition you have. In our case, for example, when you talk about clay 2-to-1, soil management is very difficult to handle. So compaction also is a problem. But in our case in Brazil, when we talk about lato soil, is a clay 1-to-1, a certain amount of compaction is good for the soil, for water retention. So compaction sometimes is depending on what type of soil you're dealing with. And another thing that I didn't see this being talking here is when we decide to go to no-tillage, for example, we solved a big problem in our country, is erosion problem. So today you have more than 50% of our agricultural production with no tillage. So I don't like to talk about high production or system if we don't speak about condition, soil condition, situation, crop, or etc. So that's a comment, but it's a question. Why you didn't talk about soil type? Because when you talk about Europe, it's a large area. And if you use, for example, no tillage in certain places here, could not get the result that you would like to have in the same place other states. That's my point.
So you have asked why not to talk about soil type. I talked about contextualization. That's including not only the soil type, it's including the weather you have, the economic market you have around you, the crops you're growing, the machines you have. I mean, it's including everything. So what we want to see is the best outcome. And I'm not like, I think always when you go to extremes, that's a bit difficult in terms of, oh, I'm no-till, I never use anything else than a no-till drill. But sometimes it might be favorable to use something else. And there's even studies that suggest if you would do a deeper tillage every about 5 years only in a large crop rotation, that's not of a problem. So I think it's about the context, and that includes the soil type exactly, and it's about an open mind for the best outcome and to less think into boxes. I believe that's the important thing here. But maybe Gottlieb has a different view on that one.
I think Andre was next.
Thank you very much. I have the question to Peter and Gottlieb, please. In France, namely, actually we speak more and more about the relay cropping approach for the farming. And can you, for your perspective, how it's compatible with conservation farming, regenerative farming? Thank you.
I did that on my farm, but maybe first to Gottlieb to also answer to the previous question, and then I get back to this one.
Well, to the previous question, well, what we say is we have to adapt conservation agriculture to site-specific conditions. And this includes the soil. But again, nature happens to succeed in all soil types, right? It depends more on the other environmental conditions, climate, and so on. But we just want to improve, and that's the other, still an answer to the other question. We look at the system through the eyes of the soil. Soil is the medium that mediates all things together for plant, for the biodiversity, for carbon sequestration, for water cycling, everything. Soil is the answer, and our approach is therefore soil-centered. The soil is in the middle of our attention, and to improve soil, we need to mimic natural conditions. And I explained in my presentation what we find in nature. Nobody turns the soil upside down. And the soil is always covered, and this applies to all soil types. Now the answer to the relay cropping. Well, of course, it's diversification of the system, relay cropping. the more species you have, the better. For the soil, it might not be for your economic returns. And this is always the issue. You have to practice farming to make an income, right? And for that, you have to decide what crops, in what way you are placing them in the field. But the soil is actually the center. And what you do then, if you reduce densities, if you improve your agronomics, that's okay. You can do everything to fine-tune your system, but the core is the soil. And the best you can do for the soil is respecting the 3 principles of conservation agriculture.
Full alignment there. So getting back to relay cropping, we have tried that on my farm and on my neighbor's farm. It's utterly complex. Just to give you a few things that I see that you struggle with. So the first one is weed control, herbicides. You have 2 crops in the field now. The second one is the complexity of the harvest. You have 2 crops to harvest, and you have twice the cost, but you don't have twice the return. So it's an economic issue. And you have 2 crops that are demanding some different that have different requirements at different times. You might have to spray a herbicide into, so we did interrelay cropping with winter wheat and soy. So I don't want to go into how complex that is. I just wonder if adding so much complexity in the first place is the best first step for regeneration. I think there are much simpler ones you can apply before, instead of going to the most complex thing I could imagine. And to me, relay cropping belongs into that box, actually. Very, 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 very difficult to do.
Thank you. I may be wrong, maybe I didn't understand what you said, but I thought you said, when I drive on my field, the soil doesn't change. Did you say that?
If the machineries are not too heavy, and we're talking not about a beet harvester 70 ton, then there's no big change, yes. The soil strength is that big that you don't see a lot of damage.
But it's not only a question of the weight of the machine and the type of tire. It's also a question of the soil condition. So is it wet? Is it dry? Is it a sandy soil? Is it a clay soil? So I thought it was a bit of a general assertion saying it doesn't change. How can you do it? I don't understand.
So just the thing that you see, and I did that to see it on my farm. I plowed half the field and did it normally, and I did the other one no-till, half of the field. Same bad conditions to enter. In the plowed field, you sink in at that time that you still can drive with maybe a little bit of how do they call it? A track that you see where you have been driving, little bit, 2-3 centimeters sink in a no-till field. You would be astonished how different that is. And you're there driving over a covered soil. It's not naked. Gottlieb, you can maybe comment on this one, but that's
what soil is it? Sandy soil, clay?
30% of clay, 30% of clay. Heavy soil, not what you want to have for no-till, to be honest. So that's my soils at home. Yeah.
Well, of course, it depends a lot on the soil type and on the moisture condition. But under the same conditions, a non-disturbed soil for some years and fully covered has a much higher machine bearing capacity than a plowed soil or a tilled soil. No doubt about that. Of course, due to the huge equipment, and we recently did some trials in tomato cropping. Of course, if you drive over with a 40-ton of trailer to collect the tomato that are provided by the harvester on the go. And if you have wet conditions, no chance.
We are, I think, getting to an end. There was one question that I admitted I can ask to look at Marco and the president. There was another one. Can we have the two last ones? Okay, good. Please. Brief answers.
Thank you. All three speakers, again, very interesting, lots of food for thought. The questions, particularly for Peter. You mentioned that top-down policy decisions has, and I would agree, has a lot of issues with it, particularly when it's made by, shall we call them mandarins in Brussels, who have no clue as to what goes on in the real world that most of us live in. But then you suggested bottom-up decision-making, particularly by farmers. Now, if I could hone in a little closer, you mentioned that you are sowing oilseed rape. Now, one of the big problems in oilseed rape growing within Europe and, in fact, in the world, has been the problem of how do you control flea beetle, this little insect. And if we relied on farmers to decide what's the best problem, we would not have banned this oilseed rape insecticide. I forgot, and I'm an engineer, so I can't tell you the name of this product, but it's a well-known thing. How do you, as a practicing farmer, manage with your oilseed rape with flea beetle attack?
Yeah, you some of the ones, but so yeah, I had one trial at home last year. I sprayed one field against it and one not, with compost tea and vitalization. 30% yield drop because I did not do one spray. 30%. So is that sustainable to make that spray? Definitely. And that's not what I'm advocating for. Though I'm advocating for contextualized maximization of plant growth, soil cover, and soil vitality at highest efficiency. It doesn't mean you're not using inputs. You have to use inputs to achieve those. So it's to me a bit of a flawed question, because I'm not suggesting to cut down on inputs if you need them. But we can cut on a lot of inputs that we actually don't need if we farm the right way. That's the framing that I would put.
There was the last one actually was not yours, it was behind you, but you need to negotiate with someone else if you have other questions.
Thank you.
But the speakers will be still there again. I think we need to close.
Do you think the machine nowadays on the market are adequate, or some innovation is still required? And in the case, as grower, do you have any suggestion or request from the manufacturers?
Well, I told you I have a few requests. Yeah, one is to actually have machines that drill cover crops or whatsoever with harvest when you till soil already. The other one is to have simpler solutions to balance weight on a tractor front back. Another one is to actually be able to do different processes at once to minimize soil disturbance, because in region ag, it's low soil disturbance doesn't mean only tillage. It's application of chemicals, it's application of mineral fertilizers, of organic fertilizers, of not the right kind, in not the right kind conditions. So it's not just tillage. So if there's one thing that I'm sure about is that the machinery landscape, if we move to that production system with a bottom-up approach, triggered and guided by the outcomes, it will change a lot. So the suggestion that I would have is to already today follow such a system, work with farmers, see what improves the outcomes, learn from it, and adapt the machines to serve that need in the best way. work with farmers. So whatever I said, forget about it. Work with farmers and actually go through that cycle with them, with us, with somebody else, and get it done. And then you will learn. I think that's the thing to do.
I would say this was a great closing remark for the session. Another one? Okay. Now I hand over to Paolo for the last one. Okay, please. Last one.
Thank you very much. The question is, very quickly, have you any data available from comparison of organic matter content in the short, medium term in the soil you cultivated? So the increase, if you checked an increase of organic matter, because of what you said before about the stability, the flexibility of the soil, I think is even mainly linked to the content of also the example you did when you push something into the soil and so on. And what do you think about, also in relation to your last remark, the organization of some demonstrative sites or demonstrative farms able to prove and to certify such a type of processes? Because, you know, it is also a problem of reliability. So there are a lot of perplexities. So this is two questions. Thank you very much.
I try to be short on this. So on my farm, 5 years average carbon sequestration in numbers of CO2 tons, 8 per hectare per year. 8. I see conservation tillage farms, 30 years of no-till, a slight increase of less than 1 ton per year over 30 years. So it is not about the tool, it's about how you use the tool. It's not about the box, it's about the entire landscape to have that approach being soil-driven. What made me improve is to really look at the outcomes we suggest to look at, because that's the thing that should drive you. And today, we look too much into the fraction of the yield that the farm, like you have all the plant production and the yield for the farmer is just what he sells. He's not looking at the overall outcome. And that we have to change. So if we do that, we move into the right direction. So I hope that answers all your questions in the best way.
If that answers all the questions, I would say that we are really done with this session. But what I would suggest maybe to consider for the future is to have a similar topic in one way or the other as a follow-up. There seems to be more need for debate and some interest as well. I think the speakers that have prepared this session, it was easy for me. I did not have to do anything, just asking them to prepare and bring their input. And I think it has caused a good conversation. I thank you very much, everyone, for the participation that makes this lively and builds bridges and sees all the grayscale. I think that was an important message. It's not A or B, and you can only do this or that. You need to adapt and adjust and discuss and build bridges for improving the system. Thank you very much for the session.